Good evening, I'm Haylee Ficuciello, Senior Correspondent for Englebrook Independent News. Tonight, we take an in-depth look at some of the most significant federal and District of Columbia court cases that concluded or moved forward during the final weeks of June of 2026. From murder convictions and lengthy prison sentences to child exploitation charges, kidnapping, armed robbery conspiracies, and obstruction of justice, prosecutors in both the United States District Court from the District of Columbia and the Superior Court of the District of Columbia close out the month with a series of major developments involving violent crimes. These cases represent years of investigations conducted by federal agencies and local law enforcement, culminating in guilty verdicts, guilty pleas, sentencing hearings, and new criminal charges. Here's our federal crime report. A Superior Court jury has found 35-year-old Arv Duff guilty to murdering 26-year-old Darnell Gibson after what prosecutors describe as a senseless dispute over a barbecue grill. According to evidence presented during the trial, the confrontation began on the evening of August 1st of 2023 inside the stairwell of an apartment building in Southwest Washington. Duff argued with his girlfriend when he knocked over a grill belonging to Gibson. The simple act escalated into a heated verbal confrontation. Both men agreed to continue arguing outside, but prosecutors told jurors that Duff never intended to engage in a fistfight. Instead, he walked to his vehicle, warned his girlfriend that there was about to be a shootout, and armed himself with a pistol. Standing roughly 60 feet away was Gibson. Duff allegedly opened fire and unleashed 22 rounds. Gibson's girlfriend narrowly escaped injury after diving into the ground. Gibson attempted to run away but was struck by 3 times in the back, dying at the scene. The jury convicted Duff of second-degree murder while armed, assault with a dangerous weapon, 2 firearm offenses committed during crime of violence, and unlawful possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. Duff remains in custody since December of 2023 arrest. Sentencing is scheduled for September 11th of 2026. Federal prosecutors have also announced new charges against Jason Robert Burke, a 50-year-old Washington resident who has twice been convicted of sex offenses. According to court documents filed in the U.S. District Court, investigators executed a search warrant at Burke's residence on June 23rd. Agents seized both a cell phone and a laptop computer. Investigators allege digital evidence showed Burke distributing videos depicting the sexual abuse of a child. Among the alleged files were 2 videos prosecutors say showed the violent sexual abuse of a toddler. Authorities also allege investigators recovered additional illegal material involving the abuse of children and bestiality. Perhaps most significantly, prosecutors say Burke was previously been convicted in 2019 for distributing child pornography. The case now moves to the federal court system. As with a criminal prosecution, the charges remain allegations until proven guilty in the court of law. In another significant Superior case, 45-year-old Nikita Walker was sentenced to 29 years in prison following a deadly crash that killed 3 innocent people. Jurors previously convicted Walker on 3 counts of involuntary manslaughter, fleeing law enforcement, and assault with a dangerous weapon. Evidence showed Walker was initially stopped after being pulled over by the United States Park Police officers for speeding and running a red light. Moments later, she escalated away. Investigators testified she reached speeds approaching 100 miles per hour while fleeing police alongside the Rock Creek Parkway. Walker crossed the double yellow center line and slammed into another vehicle. All 3 occupants inside the vehicle were killed on the spot. Judge Rainey Bandit imposed a 29-year prison sentence following Walker's April conviction. Another major sentence involves Spiro Stefantos, a Maryland man convicted after a deadly collision near the White House. According to prosecutors, Secret Service officers attempted to conduct a traffic stop after observing registration violations. Rather than comply, investigators say Stoffer fled. Moments later, while running a red traffic light, his vehicle collided with another car before spinning into 2 pedestrians lawfully crossing the street. One victim, Shui Su, died from her injuries. The second victim, Wahoo Wang, survived but suffered catastrophic injuries. Hospital testing later indicated Staphos had recently used cocaine. Jurors convicted him on second-degree murder, aggravated assault while armed, and fleeing law enforcement. Judge Rainey Bandit imposed conservative prison terms totaling 35 years, agreeing with prosecutions that the devastating injuries justified a sentence above federal guideline recommendation for the assault conviction. Superior Court also handed down an unusual sentence involving obstruction of justice. Antonio Nix, age 34, received 8 years in prison after repeatedly refusing court orders requiring him to answer questions before a grand jury investigation in 2022 stabbing death of Brittany Palmer. According to prosecutors, Nick attempted to invoke the Fifth Amendment during the testimony. However, after hearing Chief Judge Anita Josie Herring, he had no valid Fifth Amendment privilege regarding the questions being asked. Despite multiple court orders, prosecutors say Nix repeatedly refused to answer. Ultimately, he pled guilty to obstruction of justice and criminal contempt. Judge Judith Pipe sentenced him to 8 years in imprisonment, followed by 5 years of supervised release. The case illustrates the refusal to obey lawful court orders during criminal investigation can itself result in substantial prison time. Federal Judge Colleen Kohler Cotley sentenced 24-year-old Malik Terrell to 87 months in federal prison for his role in a violent 2023 kidnapping conspiracy that ultimately resulted in 2 deaths. Court filings described a disturbing chain of events. Following a birthday celebration, Terrell and multiple co-conspirators allegedly attacked 2 men, stealing clothes, money, and luxury Mercedes SUV. The victims were forcibly transported into multiple locations across the district and into Maryland. During the ordeal, they were threatened and assaulted. Eventually, prosecutors say a shootout erupted in Waldorf, Maryland. 1 kidnapping victim and another individual were killed. The stolen Mercedes was later discovered burned in Capitol Heights. Terrell previously pled guilty to kidnapping and aiding and abetting. He also is serving 5 years of supervised release after completing his prison terms. A homicide case dating back more than 6 years also reached a significant milestone. Jackal Mason, age 26, pled guilty to second-degree murder while armed and assaulting a police officer while armed. Prosecutors say Mason approached Terrence Donser in Washington Chinatown neighborhood during February of 2020. After a brief conversation, Mason allegedly shot Donser in the head before firing 2 additional rounds after the victim collapsed. As police pursued Mason throughout northwest Washington, investigators say he opened fire on Metropolitan Police officers. Officers returned fire, striking Mason before taking him into custody. Sentencing has been scheduled for October 2nd of 2026. Federal prosecutors have also announced charges against Tawan Tyree Hall and Anthony Bruno, who investigators accuse of carrying out a month-long armed robbery conspiracy. According to the indictment, between November of 2025 and March of 2026, the pair allegedly robbed 6 T-Mobile stores and 1 pawn shop across Washington and Maryland. Investigators say the suspect entered business wearing masks and dressed entirely in black. Prosecutors allege they threatened employees and customers with handguns before stealing cash and electronic devices from store safes. Authorities further allege the suspects used multiple stolen getaway vehicles and frequently changed clothing following each robbery in an effort to avoid identification. Both defendants now face multiple federal Hobbs Act robbery charges. As with all pending criminal cases, both men are presumed innocent unless proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt. The final week of June demonstrates the breadth of criminal prosecutions moving throughout both the United States District Court and Superior Court of the District of Columbia. These cases range from homicide and kidnapping to child exploitation, armed robbery, obstruction of justice, and deadly vehicle crimes. While each investigation involves different agencies and different victims, they all underscore the extensive work performed by federal prosecutions, local law enforcement, forensic investigation, and courts in bringing complex criminal cases to trial. We'll continue monitoring these investigations, sentencing hearings, and appeals as they develop throughout the summer. For continued coverage of federal crime, public safety, and national courts, stay with Englebrook Independent News. I'm Haylee Ficuciello, Senior Correspondent for Englebrook Independent News. Thank you for joining us and have a safe evening. Good night.